Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of In Pit Lane. Well, joining us on the program this week is another third generation race, and we've spoken to a few of them just recently and of course over the past few years. As I've said, we've spoken to three generations of Davisons and Brabhams and Richards, and tonight we're going to talk to another third generation racer in Aaron Seton. And the Seton family have quite a connection with In Pit Lane because Aaron's father Glenn was in fact the guest on our very first program, the pilot episode of In Pit Lane, alongside Darren Pate. So there's a bit of history for you going back. But of course, Glenn went on to win a couple of Australian touring car championships, and now of course his son is following in his footsteps. So we'll be joined by Aaron a little bit later on in the program and talking all things about TA2, which has a very exciting future, and also his time in Toyotas, in the Toyota 86 series, and in the Touring Car Masters as well. But look, obviously things are slowly but surely returning to some sense of normality in motorsport. The crowds might not be around, but the cars are. So let's find out what's been happening this week in motorsport with the In Pit Lane Motorsport News. Denny Hamlin led a dominating 138 of 267 laps in last Sunday's NASCAR Cup 400-mile race at Homestead, Miami, Florida. Hamlin took the lead, passing Chase Elliott with 29 laps remaining after a series of green flag pit stops swapped the two cars' position at the front of the field. The Toyota driver went on to lead Elliott and Team Penske's Ryan Blaney across the line by less than 1 second. The victory was Hamlin's 40th NASCAR Cup Series win. It was a dominant performance by Hamlin, who also won both the first and second stages, making him the first driver in 2020 to sweep both stages and go on to win the race. Series leader Joey Logano was an early pace setter, but was involved in a pit road collision with Kevin Harvick, which dropped the Team Penske driver back to 27th place. He still leads the series, though, as the championship rolls on to its next race on the high-speed Talladega Superspeedway this weekend. And Australia is about to get another long-distance event of its own with the Winton 14-hour race.
We're going to conduct a 2-day endurance event, which is 14 plus hours. The first day we're going to race for about 7 hours. The second day we'll race as long as we can, but we reckon we're going to get about 8 or so hours in. The 14 plus hour events are held with teams of 4 plus drivers. These are great challenges for the team and a great challenge for the car.
The event will be held over 2 days in early August and is the brainchild of the Motor Events Group.
It's all about affordable, team-based, grassroots racing that really anyone can be involved in. Now this year we're holding multiple endurance racing events across the east coast of Australia. There's no 20-minute sprints and motor events. It's get in the car, get on the track and drive until the sun goes down. Now it's all about cars under the value of $5,000 or less. Now this is defined by minimum red book value, so it certainly gives you a little bit of flexibility on what you can drive.
The race will feature 2 events in one, with a Sunday 7-hour race to be held concurrently with the second half of the main race.
Now these Inception races and series are a 7-hour endurance event with teams of 2 plus drivers. Now this is a race inside a race, as the Inception races will join the 14-hour event on the second day. So it should be really interesting.
The 14-hour race is the latest in a growing list of affordable long-distance races that are becoming more and more popular, with amateur drivers looking to maximise their track time at an affordable cost. More local racing returned this weekend as the BMW Car Club held a come and try day at Sandown. Numbers were strictly controlled and special conditions put in place to comply with all relevant government legislation during the current Armageddon. Demand for places and track time was high, and everybody, including volunteer marshals, were absolutely thrilled to finally be back on track.
I think they've done a very good job, the BMW Club, with the sign-on and the social distancing and all the precautions that they're taking.
We sent out a electronic driver's briefing with a covering letter about all the protocols we'd have in place here, and everybody's been fantastic. Everybody's working to keep apart, the social distancing and the sanitising and washing hands and everything, and it's been great. It's really good.
I don't think anything could match the scale of what we've had to do to get this sort of thing up and going. I mean, I can only imagine the amount of work that's been involved in getting even a small event like this, and I'm not meaning to be disparaging, but there's a lot of organising has gone into this event, and nobody's ever experienced anything like it before, and hopefully we'll never experience it again.
The DTM has completed pre-season testing at the Nürburgring. Between them, manufacturers Audi and BMW racked up roughly 19,000 kilometres and over 5,000 laps of testing. In ideal conditions, Ferdinand Hasberg in the WR Team Audi emerged as the fastest driver of the test, lapping under last year's record. DTM rookie driver Robert Kubica was also busy, completing almost 2,000 kilometres of testing over the 2 days. Audi, who are set to leave the series at year's end, set the pace with the 4 fastest times of the test. The 2020 DTM will kick off in Belgium at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit on August 1st and 2nd. And that's the in-pit lane news for the week commencing Monday, June the 15th, 2020. Remember, if you're a local race team or if your club is running an event, why not tell us about it by emailing the show at inpitlane.com. Remember that we have a website at inpitlane.com where we have links to all sorts of international and local motorsport events. Remember to like, subscribe and ring the notifications bell on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel to be informed of all of the latest news and content from In Pit Lane. We're also on Facebook and we're on Twitter as well. We're even on Instagram, although we still aren't sure why. We're going to take a break now on In Pit Lane, but when we come back, we're going to be joined by our special guest, third-generation racer Aaron Seton. So don't go away. You're watching In Pit Lane, Channel 31 Melbourne, Channel 44 Adelaide, and of course the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. And remember, contact your local MP and ask them what they're doing to save local TV. This is In Pit Lane. We'll be right back after this break. Ferrari Formula One driver Charles Leclerc is featured in a remake of the cult classic movie Rendezvous. The shoot took place in the early hours of the morning of May 24th, the very day that the Monaco Grand Prix was supposed to take place. The streets of the Principality were closed to traffic for the occasion, and a film crew of 17 used a variety of different cameras to capture the Ferrari's performance, with a team of 6 engineers and technicians from Maranello providing backup and advice. The film pays tribute to C'était un Rendezvous, a previous short film by Claude Lelouch on the streets of Paris in 1976, which has gone on to receive cult status over the years. Aside from the focus on speed and the instantly recognisable soundtrack of the Ferrari engine, both the new and the old film feature actors close to the director's heart. The co-star of the first film was Janella Frieden, Lelouch's then partner, while the young florist appearing at the beginning and end of this remake. Well, our guest tonight on In Pit Lane is another third-generation racer. We've been making a habit of talking to third-generation racers just recently here on the program. But our guest tonight, his grandfather won the Bathurst 500, as it was then, back in 1965. And, of course, his father, Glenn, was a 2-time Australian Touring Car Championship winner back in the 90s with Ford, raced for Nissan. And, well, I mean, everybody knows the name Glenn Seton. But his son Aaron has been racing for quite a while now and has driven in a number of cars, including the Toyota 86 season. And more recently, he's been really getting behind the wheel of some big V8s in the Touring Car Masters and, of course, the growing TA2 category. And Aaron Seton joins us now. Aaron, welcome to In Pit Lane.
Thank you for having me.
Now let's talk about sort of your pathway through to motorsport and getting behind the wheel. I mean, were you always interested? Were you always going to be a racing driver?
Yeah, definitely. I first went to the racetrack when I was 3 months old. My first meeting was actually Bathurst in 1998. So no, it's something that I've always grown up around and I've always loved it. Obviously, my passion's grown over the years for driving, and I've really enjoyed being part of that. Really, the family atmosphere that motorsport's created for us. Obviously, with me being the third generation, it's been pretty special to sort of experience it all. Drawing from what Pop and Dad have learnt over the years, and putting it to action in my own driving.
The other thing is, I noticed in looking at your background away from the track, I mean, you are a mechanic. You've worked at DJR, Team Penske Racing as well, so it's obviously something you are passionate about. Do you think that helps? I mean, that the fact that you've got a mechanical background, a lot of drivers nowadays, and we have a lot of them on the show, they come in, I mean, they're often sons of rich fathers who just jump in and know nothing about the cars that they're driving. You actually get your hands dirty. Has that been something that both your grandfather and your father have really sort of, pushed forward to you over the years, the importance of knowing your machinery?
Yeah, definitely. Knowing the technical side of motorsport has been a big help, and I've really noticed that in my driving, just for little setup changes and stuff like that. It's been really good. I've spent 2.5 years at DJR Team Penske, and I really enjoyed it there. It's been pretty special to be a part of that team environment and learn how the best go racing. And it's definitely a lot that I can put towards my racing in that supercars is where I want to end up, and learning about those cars has definitely developed my driving, but as well as getting the contacts to move forward has been pretty special.
So what's your role at DJR?
So I was a mechanic on car 12. I was the number 3 mechanic that I was workshop based. And whenever the cars went away for racing, I just gave a general hand around the workshop. And then when they were back, I was full-time on car 12. So I really enjoyed that team environment.
We first sort of noticed you in major racing when you were behind the wheel of the Toyota in the Toyota 86 series. That series, Toyota have just announced that they are going to continue backing that series, which is certainly good news in the current environment. How did you find that series? I mean, was that a good way to get your foot in the door to mainstream motorsport?
Yeah, definitely. The Toyota Racing Series is great for grassroots racing, making that step from karts to cars. It's perfect to get exposure because you're with all the supercar events and you're able to sell that to sponsors, as well as Toyota really help you out and subsidise a lot of it, so it brings the costs down. So I think it's a great series for any young guys to come into motorsport and just get a taste of what it's like.
The car you've been driving over the past year or so, well, the cars are very different though to the Toyota. I mean, you've gone very much into the muscle car area, both in the Touring Car Masters and TA2. We'll talk a bit more about TA2 in just a moment after the break. But the Touring Car Masters thing, how did that all happen?
It was just through family, friends, and connections, really. I'd known Leo Tobin for a fair while, and he decided to step away at the start of last year after Adelaide and asked if I wanted to have a go in the car. And obviously, anytime you can get in a car, you jump at the opportunity. So, no, I really enjoyed and learned a lot from last year of racing the guys like John Bowe and Stevie J. It was definitely a memorable moment that last year.
Do you think that helps? I mean, you mentioned a couple of names there in Bowie, who was on just recently on the program, and Steve Johnson as well. I mean, coming from your background, I mean, you've got your father, but you've probably got a lot of sort of unofficial uncles as well. I mean, do they get behind you and sort of give you some tips as well?
Yeah, definitely. Anyone you race against, you're able to learn something off. So it's cool to draw from so much experience out of those guys. Obviously, they've been in motorsport for a long time. And there's always something that you can learn.
Obviously, the car you were driving, I mean, was around, originally was built before you were even born. I mean, how did you find it? I mean, from being a young driver hopping into a car like that, was it a bit of a culture shock?
Oh, it was. Just the technology change is so much different. Like there was no data or dash or anything like that I was used to. And being a leaf spring rear end too, it was the car handled completely differently. So it was definitely an eye opener, but it was good for getting that adaptability in driving different types of cars. And I really enjoyed the experience.
Would you like to do more Touring Car Masters if the opportunity arises?
Yeah, definitely. Any opportunity to jump behind the wheel of a race car, not just Touring Car Masters, but any category I'd jump at.
Well, as we said, one category that you have been very successful in and that you've been racing is TA2, and very interested in TA2. It seems to be a category that's got an awful lot of potential, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that when we come back after this break. But you're watching In Pit Lane. Our guest tonight is Aaron Seton, so don't go away. This is In Pit Lane on Channel 31 Melbourne, Channel 44 Adelaide, and of course the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. Stay where you are. We'll be right back. Welcome back to In Pit Lane. Well, our guest tonight is Aaron Seton. And Aaron, before the break, we were talking about your time in Touring Car Masters behind the wheel of a classic Mustang, but you've been racing something a lot more modern, but in many ways still sort of, the successor to that original car in TA2. Tell us a bit about TA2. I mean, we haven't seen it. It's a relatively new category in Australia, but it's very successful. I don't think a lot of people realise just how successful it is all over the world. It's not just an American thing, is it? They're racing these things everywhere now.
Yeah, they pretty much have a series in every economy now. They've grown really big in Asia as well too, but in America they're massive. Just the cost-effective racing in them. It's I think it's 130 grand for a brand new car, and there's not many race cars with the quality that the TA2 is that you can find these days with that sort of price tag. So, and also the running costs to keep them going. We had a LS3 engine in all the cars in Australia, and ours lasted I think 4 seasons. So it's pretty special category in that way.
So for people who don't fully know about it, I mean, a lot of people would say, oh yeah, they're just like sports sedans, and I suppose they're very much in that sort of style. But as you say, there is a control engine. What do you think the future is for this category? I mean, because the cars look good, they sound good. Do you think people can put aside that idea that they've got a control engine in them and just sort of accept them as Mustangs and Dodges and Camaros and that sort of thing?
Oh, definitely. The control engine is perfect for a parity category, and it keeps all the costs down. And the category, I mean, the cars look awesome, they sound great, it produces great racing, and you're able to follow closely with cars. It's definitely a growing category, and I can only see it going up from where it is now.
Of course, they started out, there was the TA2 series, and now the Australian Racers Group have got involved as well. They're sort of, we've spoken on the show for a number of weeks now about the really good position the Australian Racers Group are in once all of this nonsense finishes up. They've got TCR, they've got S5000, Touring Car Masters are on board now. They've also got Trans Am. Now, under those circumstances, I mean, can you see an opportunity now that because you're a part of Trans Am and because they're a part of ARG, that this will now be your stepping stone into other categories within the Australian Racing Group sort of family?
Yeah, definitely. If the opportunity comes up, I'd jump at any opportunity in the ARG Group family. They've developed a nice portfolio of categories that they got now, and it's pretty cool to see the list that they own. They're all categories in their own right. They're not just support categories. So any of them could be a headlining event, and it's pretty cool being at the same meeting.
They've got a lot of flexibility now, haven't they? I mean, when you look at it, I mean, as you say, you've got sort of support categories, but any single one of them can be sort of a main event in its own right, and that gives them an enormous amount of flexibility to have special events. So do you think that's sort of the future? I mean, obviously with your background in supercars as well, everyone's looking towards what's happening for the Gen 3 regulations and what's going to replace Holden. Do you think we might actually see sort of, almost not an adoption of the TA2 type regulations, but something similar for supercars?
I hope so. It'd be a perfect cost-effective option. It's what the sport needs at the moment. Just obviously with the current health situation, it's making things difficult. But I think that TA2 is definitely a formula that you could adopt into supercar regulations. It's what the category needs.
As we mentioned on the ARG category, card every race meeting is S5000. Your father briefly raced open wheeler cars. I don't know whether he did 1 or 2 races. I remember being there for at least one of them. Does S5000 have any appeal to you at all?
I'd definitely do a test there. I'm not sure about a race. I've never really done much in open wheelers before. It's
Well, neither did your dad, but he did pretty well, I think, in the meeting I was at. From my memory at Sandown, he actually won that race.
I think he did. Yeah, it was in. Was it Formula Holden or I can't even.
No, I think it was Formula Two. Formula Two, I think, if I remember rightly. Yeah, I think in a Rolt, if I remember rightly.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he. I remember he did do well in it, and yeah, it's definitely something I'd like to experience one day. But I'm focused at the moment on the tin tops and developing my skill in that.
So supercars are definitely the path you want to go down. I mean, have you looked at the possibility of some international stuff, or are you just totally focused on a career in supercars and here in Australia?
My goal is to make a professional career in motorsport. Wherever that takes me, I'm not sure yet. Time will tell. But whether that's supercars in Australia, I'd love the opportunity. Or also at the start of last year, I got to go over to Germany and do the BMW Junior Shootout. So whether it could be a career in GT racing overseas, I'd love either pathway.
Well, as we've said to a few people, talking with Ben Bargwana a couple of weeks ago and others, there are opportunities, lots of opportunities now, thanks to the success of GT3 around the world. So that's something you are looking at very closely, and have you made a lot of contacts in that area?
Yeah, it's definitely something that I'm looking at closely. I got the opportunity to drive a GT3 Porsche in 2016, 15 actually, sorry, I think it was. And with Scott Taylor Motorsport, and it was the most fun I've ever had in a race car. So if any other opportunities to come up to drive those, I'd jump at it.
So what are the plans for the rest of this year? I mean, as we're looking at uncertain future at the moment, but I mean, things will eventually get back to some degree of normality. For the rest of 2020, what are your plans?
So my plan is to stay in the Trans Am series with ARG. I think the calendar just got released, and we have 5 or 4 remaining rounds for the year. So it's come together like a quite good calendar, and I'm looking forward to starting back in August.
And of course, a race at Bathurst as well. That would obviously be a track you'd enjoy racing, especially a car like that. What do you think a TA2 car is going to be like around Bathurst?
They're very similar to a supercar to drive, actually. So I'm thinking it's going to be very similar to that, or also I've driven a Mach car at the Bathurst 12 hour, so very similar to that as well.
Well, good luck with all of that. It's good to have you on. As I said, we've spoken to a lot of third-generation racers, and your father is a part of the history of In Pit Lane. As I think I said to you online, the very first pilot episode of the program, our guests were Darren Pate and Glenn Seton. So as we come towards what's possibly the end of In Pit Lane, it's really great that you could come on and join us. So, Aaron, good luck for the rest of season 2020 and for the rest of your career. But for now, thanks for joining us in Pit Lane.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you to Aaron Seton, and good luck for the rest of the season, and I said with his career in the future. As I said, it certainly makes you feel old, but there's something sort of satisfying too about, seeing people who have been guests on programs back, 20 years ago when we started In Pit Lane coming through. I mean, Aaron wasn't even born when Glenn came in on for that very first show. Actually, it was the first show. It was the pilot show. It was actually the second show that went to air, but we decided to sort of do a pilot show first and see how it went. And well, it must have gone pretty well, because 24 years later, here we are. So thanks for joining us again here on In Pit Lane. Hope you'll join us again next week. But until we see you then, from all of us here at In Pit Lane, it's thanks for joining us and bye for now. Hi, thanks for watching. If you'd like to catch up with more local and international motorsport news, remember to subscribe and like the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. Also, check out some of our other videos that you can see over there, or perhaps over there. I don't know where I put them yet, but they're here somewhere.